Well, it is getting warmer, is it not? Thanks be to Jesus. I was really worried there a couple weeks ago. It was like 20 below if it was ever, spring would ever sprung, but it has, and thank God. And I just find myself the last few days taking the kids out and we just wander the streets with really nothing to do but just soak in the sunshine. And I know spring is many of your favorite seasons as the trees begin to bud and spring plants and so forth begin to sprout from the ground, the grass turns green, and we fire up the lawn mowers and the weather gets warmer. Well, a few years ago, at the end of the season, my wife and I bought a couple of rose bushes, cheap ones from Menards. I think we paid $10 for the pair of them, and threw them in the front yard in the flower bed. If they do something, they do. If not, it's only $10. Well, the next spring, they just came in really just full and almost up to the windows of the house. They were just beautiful. But then I noticed something else happen. I think they're called knockout roses. Is anyone familiar with these? They tend to bloom real quickly, and then they're just kind of done. And they leave a lot of dead buds all over the bushes. So now we're kind of faced with a decision here. We can do two things. We can just enjoy the quick blooming that they give us and then stare at the dead buds. Or we can do a little work on our bushes and trim those dead buds, and more flowers will come in. Well, I enlisted the boys in this work, and right, get them out there, put them to work, put scissors in their hands, and see what happens. But Father of the Year here. It's good mindless activity. Many of you like gardening for the same reason. You just kind of lose yourself, and so we're chopping away. And what happens a few days later, maybe a week later? What happens to our bushes? Oh, we need to take a gardening class, apparently. You get more flowers, more blooms. And they're many of them are more beautiful than the first. Pink and red. And then they kind of quickly fade and die. And you have to keep doing this process of pruning these things back so that they become more flowery and fruitful and beautiful. There's a little work involved in this. Now, if we wouldn't prune those back, if you don't prune back your things, what happens is those dead buds still on your branches, the plant sends nutrients to them needlessly. And it sends water and stuff that it's sucking up from the roots, and it's not going to the branches that could flower. Do you see that? There's an opportunity cost here. If you're letting the nutrients go to the dead branches in your plants, they won't go to the ones that will bring you joy. And Christ kind of lays that out in today's message. Right away, he says, listen, he gives us a garden analogy. I am the vine, and you are my branches. Right? And if you don't be careful to prune back the branches of your life that suck away life from you and nutrients, then you won't bear good fruit. You won't produce pretty flowers. Does that make sense? In the book that some of us are studying as we go through Lent by Pastor Rob Fuquay, The God We Can Know, where he talks about these I am statements, he has a great analogy. He says, that 95% of the stuff that you do, 95% of how you spend your day, whether it be at work or commuting back and forth to work, your daily tasks, taking care of your home and all the chores that go with it. You know what I'm talking about? I can just feel your stress levels going up. Mine is. Right? 95% of what you do, Pastor Fuquay says, someday will be replaced by someone else. All right? Eventually you're going to pass on, and someone else is going to live in your house and take care of it. Eventually someone's going to be doing the job you're doing. Some of you are tired and saying, fine, take the job I'm doing, and someone is already doing it, right? And that's a great feeling. But that's true for all of us. All of us can be replaced. At least 95% of what you do. Now, Pastor Rob says there's 5% that makes up you that's uniquely you. Now, what is that? Well, only you can take care of your body. You only have one body. So no one else is going to tend to it but you. Your physical body, your emotional health, your spiritual health, all that stuff, right? Only you are the one that your spouse calls a wife or a husband. Only you are the one that some precious kids sometimes will call mom or grandma or dad or uncle. That's the 5% of you that's uniquely you. and cannot be replaced. Only you were baptized in your name and called and claimed by God a beloved child of God. Only you. So Pastor Rob says maybe we need to take a step back and not spend so much time and focus and energy on the 95%. Some of that stuff with your work and this other your busyness that kind of saps energy away from you like dead flowers. And maybe focus more on the 5%. Think of it this way. I went to a church conference here recently. I almost didn't go to the church conference, and there's a funny story about that. It was done by a life coach, Jill Farmer, and she put it on for ELCA pastors, and it was trying to be better time managers. And at the time of the conference last fall, I found myself working like 60, 70 hours a week. I was way overworking myself, and no one was making me do that. But I was doing that. It's ridiculous. And I saw this conference. I said, boy, I really need to go to this conference. But the irony is there's no time. And so I seriously thought about just cutting it and not going, and so I could take care of more of you and do things here and at the church. And I thought, no, I really need this. So I made the time and I went. And the life coach there, Jill Farmer, she, in her book called There's Not Enough Time, and Other Lies We Tell Ourselves, she says, one of the first things that you need to do, you overworked pastors, and this applies to many of you in your overworked jobs, is you need to sit down, and you know how you do a to-do list? Or some of you highly organized people do a to-do list, right? Is in the same way that you do a to-do list and you need to get things done, Jill says you need to go home and make a to-don't list. Now think about this for a second. I want to challenge all you guys to do this today. When you go home from church, sit down and write out a to-don't list. This is a dream. This is a wish list. If I had my way and could wave a magic wand, what are some things I would spend less time on? Money. Yeah, exactly. And then whatever it is for you. Right? It's different for every person. So go home and write it out and say, I'd like to spend less time on this. I would like to do, maybe quit doing this. Maybe say no to this. And you make out a to-don't list. And just like a to-do list, you prioritize it from most important to least important, and then you start ticking it off. And I'm telling you, friends, I did that. And I'm down to about 40 hours a week, and it feels great. I don't miss those things at all. They're gone and cut away from my life. And people can be like that too, just people that suck your energy and your time and so forth. Maybe it's time you need to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with them. Say, I just can't, spend that much time with you. You're sucking energy out of me. So, how does this play out if we want to, what are we left with then? If we think about refocusing less on the 95%, more on the 5%, what are we left with? Well, you're left with your friends. You're left with your family. And you're left with your God who gives you the source of your strength. I want you to do something for me. Now, don't be careful with this. Don't reach out and slap your neighbor, but I want you to kind of reach out both hands, left and right. Go ahead and do it now. Again, this is not permission from your pastor to slap the person you're with. Okay? And I want you to make with your left hand a fist, and with your right hand you have an open palm. And I want you to think about, in your left hand you're connected to the vine of Christ, and in your right hand is your fruit. Now look at you, you're all branches. Okay? You're literally taking the gospel. So look at the fruit in your right hand for a second. Right? Look at the fruit. I didn't say put your arms down. Come on. Look at the fruit in your right hand for a second. Pastor Fuqua says this is the 95%. This is your job. This is all the things that you produce. Pastor Fuqua says we're just too focused on that we need to turn our heads and look at the vine in your left hand. All right? That's what connects you to God. Now you can put your arms down. This is the 5%. How does that feel? What does that look like for you? It's different for every person. But Jesus says, I am the true vine. I am where you get nutrients. I am where you get life. Focus on that. And all this other stuff will kind of take care of itself. Right? I think to truly understand these I am statements, we have to put ourselves in the context. But outside of knockout roses, vines and all these other things and shepherds don't really mean a lot to us in America in 2015. what does mean something to us? Well, the bald eagle, as Tiffany said in her introduction to lessons. You understand the bald eagle. It's a symbol of the United States of America. We chose it because it symbolizes our freedom. It symbolizes our independence. It's a very independent animal, right? It's the bald eagle. Well, similarly, in Jesus' time, the vine would have carried that same special significance. Because the vine to the people of Israel is how they understood, like the bald eagle, it connected them to God. They understand that God was the source of all their life and their strength. They understood that God was what gave them their nutrients. God was the vine. And the people of God were the branches. And they used this symbolism in all of their buildings. In the temple in Jerusalem, where Jesus would have been just a day or so before he made this great speech about I am the true vine, is all these vines in the building. And it was said at the great temple in Jerusalem that the fruit on these vines, this ornate structure that had the fruit on it, these gold-plated grapes were as big as your head. It's easy to focus on the fruit, isn't it? When it's as big as your head. And it's all over the building. And Jesus had that in his heart and his soul when he stood just a day or so later and thought about that vine imagery that was so important to the people of Israel. People who at times felt cut off from God. Who felt like, where is God? Where is this vine? Because I don't see him in my life. We've broken his laws. We've broken his commandments. We're not connected to him anymore. And Jesus stood there in that context and he said, friends, I am the true vine. He didn't say I'm a branch and God's the vine. He said I'm the vine. I'm the one who gives you strength. I'm the one who gives you life. I'm the one who brings your life into balance. Okay? So even if you feel like things are out of whack and you're overworked and you're entirely busy and everything's upside down and you feel like a terrible person, you can rest assured that God loves you. That God is still with you. That you're still connected. Even though you feel busy and your focus is over here, you know that God is still connected to you in the person of Jesus Christ. He is your connectivity to what matters, to the 5%. And he will never, ever, ever let go of you if we abide in him. Amen.